This is Gloomy Sunday, and once again, I will be sharing spooky stories that will send shivers down your thorny spine. Without further ado, let's begin tonight's creepy, spooky, and sometimes outlandish array of tales. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. One night at work, we were short-staffed, so I had to work as both the nurse and aide on one side of the hall. One of my female residents was getting sleepy in her chair, so I went over to help her to bed. She doesn't usually talk but mumbles things from time to time. As I held both her hands and walked backward to guide her, she cocked her head to the side and mumbled, "You all are going to hell for burning children." Then she looked up at me and smirked. I didn't think much of it at first because I'm used to working with residents like this, and she does things like this all the time. I just brushed it off. When we got to her room, I noticed her bed was raised to the highest position. I took her to the bathroom to let her do her thing and adjusted the bed controls to bring it down to a level where I could help her into bed. I then went back to assist her with her personal care. Once again, I helped her up to a standing position, holding both hands, and started walking backward toward her bed. As we got closer, I turned her around to sit her down, only to find that her bed was raised up high again. The woman cocked her head to the side and mumbled something I couldn't quite understand, but it sounded like, "I told you the child is under there." My goosebumps were immediate, and my hair stood on end. I quickly readjusted the bed, got her settled, turned off the lights, and rushed out. I even texted my sisters-in-law because I was so freaked out. Later, when I went back to check on her, I found her room lights completely on. Hearing water dripping, I checked the sink, and my heart dropped. 2 pull-ups were in the toilet, and pink pads were scattered all over the bathroom floor, as if someone had been playing in there. This resident can't get up on her own and needs assistance, and no one had been in her room that night besides me. My heart pounded so hard, I thought I was going to faint. I cleaned up the mess as fast as I could and hurried out of the room. Afterward, I told the med aide who came in to pass morning meds. She said, "Oh yes, there are spirits in that room, especially down that hallway. I see them all the time." I said, "Shut up." But she insisted, saying no one believes her, so she doesn't talk about it much. When I thought about it, this might explain why she talks to herself so often. I'd see her getting ready for the day, talking, and would always assume she was talking to me. But when I'd ask, she'd say she wasn't. So I guess we have a med aide who sees spirits. That explains why she acts a little different. I didn't ask her much more because, by then, I was already too shaken up. She also told me she has a son who passed away and visits her often. I was speechless and scared. Every time I see her, I try to listen to what she's saying, but I can't make out her words. It almost sounds like she's speaking a different language. Some days, a few of my residents seem to see the same people. Or at least that's what I think. One night, a resident had a fall. As I was assessing her, she kept smiling and laughing, saying she was embarrassed for slipping. My aide and I helped her up, and she looked at me and said, "Wow, you are a strong man." I was confused why she'd call me a man but didn't correct her. We assisted her back to bed, and I needed to check her vitals. As I was checking her blood pressure, she started laughing and smiling, looking off to the side. She said, flirtatiously, "Hey, give me back my glasses." Confused, I thought, "You already have them on." But she insisted, "No, I know you have them." Goosebumps rose as I watched her talking to someone unseen. She touched her face, felt her glasses, and laughed hysterically, saying, "You're right. I have my glasses on." At this point, I was beyond scared. I asked, "Who are you talking to?" She replied, "Well, look at all these men." Aren't they just so wonderful? Her voice was soft and flirtatious, and she kept smiling and laughing. Before I knew it, I had already retreated to my office. Just as I was finally calming down, another resident, one who never gets up at night, knocked on my office door. She came in and said, "I can't sleep." I asked, "Why not?" "You always sleep well," she said. "These men keep coming into my room. I need them to stop." I was speechless, my goosebumps back again. I told her to go back to bed and that I'd make sure the men would leave her alone. She went back, but I was on edge for the rest of the night. Yikes. That is so creepy. That is why it is so hard to work with older people. Sometimes they act so weird that you don't know if they are serious or not. Let's read another story. During the Second World War, my uncle and his sister escaped from Laos to Thailand with a group of relatives. Sadly, one of their close aunts went into labor during the journey, which made the escape even more difficult. On the night of the aunt's labor, the group decided to stop and build shelters using sticks and banana leaves. Exhausted from their long journey, everyone quickly fell asleep, except for the aunt who had just given birth, and my uncle's sister, who stayed awake to help. As they sat by the small fire they had built, my uncle's sister could see how drained the aunt was. She offered to hold the baby so the aunt could rest. The aunt refused at first, saying, "It's all right. Just make sure you keep the fire burning. Add more wood whenever you see it dying down." My uncle's sister, being young, simply nodded, saying, "Okay." Throughout the night, my uncle's sister noticed that the fire seemed to die down faster than usual. She kept adding wood, puzzled by how the flames seemed to flicker and move, but thought little of it. Every time the flames began to fade, the baby would cry loudly, only calming down when the fire was reignited. As the hours passed, my uncle's sister asked again if she could hold the baby, hoping the aunt would get some sleep. This time, the aunt handed her the newborn. But even after that, the aunt didn't sleep. She just kept feeding more wood into the fire, trying to keep the flames alive. As dawn approached, the baby's cries ceased, and it became clear the newborn had passed away. The aunt, heartbroken, had lost her child. Days later, they finally reached Thailand. Once they had settled and felt safe, the aunt asked my uncle's sister if she remembered the night they had both stayed up, tending to the newborn. My uncle's sister said she did. Then, the aunt asked, "Do you remember how I told you to keep the fire burning, no matter what?" My uncle's sister nodded. The aunt then revealed, "I didn't tell you that night because I knew it would scare you. But every time the flames went out, I saw a group of little, deceased girls with long, black hair all around you. They were making faces, hitting you with large sticks, and blowing on the fire to put it out. When I gave you my baby, they seemed to want to take him too, and I knew the fire was his only protection. If they managed to extinguish it completely, I feared they would take my baby's life along with it. There were so many of them that I knew we couldn't fight them off." Hearing this, my uncle's sister was filled with chills. She had no idea that she had been surrounded by restless spirits, determined to claim the life she was holding. This is sad and spooky at the same time. It is so upsetting that the baby did not survive, but honestly, there is nothing more terrifying than being trapped in a war. Let's read another story. I want to share a story that I experienced, one that still haunts me to this day. When I was 15, I often had strange occurrences, what my family calls tsuum, a kind of spiritual attack, almost every night. These episodes left me feeling weak and sick, and it worried my parents. Traditional and strict, they rarely let me stay out late, so this illness seemed to come out of nowhere. Concerned, they called a shaman to perform a hu plig for me and our family, a ritual to recall the soul. After the shaman completed the ceremony, I started feeling better, and the tsuum stopped. For years, I didn't experience anything unusual until I turned 20. The episodes returned, though only once or twice, and I convinced myself it was just sleep paralysis. I didn't want to revisit the fear I had felt as a teenager. But eventually, things took a darker turn. One night, I was sleeping with my younger sister, as she'd been doing ever since the incidents began when I was 15. We shared a queen-sized bed pushed against the wall. My sister slept on the side by the wall, and I took the opposite side. In the middle of the night, my body suddenly went numb, and I couldn't move. I told myself it was sleep paralysis again, took a few deep breaths, and shook myself awake. I dismissed it as an awkward, sleeping position and tried to go back to sleep. But soon, it happened again. I felt something heavy pressing down on me, making my arms go numb. Frustrated, I woke up once more, feeling both shaken and annoyed. I decided to go to the bathroom to refresh myself, hoping that would help. Back in bed, I turned away from my sister to fall asleep. Then it happened again, but this time, it was different, more intense. I felt a leg draped over my side and an arm around my shoulders. Thinking my sister had rolled over onto me, I tried to move her off, but my body felt so weak that I couldn't even shift. When I managed to turn slightly, I glanced over and saw my sister sleeping soundly against the wall, her back turned to me. Terror crept over me as I realized if she was by the wall, then who was lying on me? I didn't see a face, just a dark, shadowy figure with pale, cold arms and legs around me. Panic surged through me, and I began yelling at myself in my mind, desperately trying to wake up. I focused all my strength on moving my arms, fighting to break free from this paralysis. Finally, I managed to open my eyes and sat up, heart pounding, still shaking with fear. That was the most vivid and terrifying tsuum I've ever experienced. It was the last occurrence, and I hope it stays that way. I'm not eager to feel anything like that ever again. I can't imagine having attacks like that. I would be scared witless. I hope you enjoyed our spooky and strange stories. Join us next time for more. Take care and boo-bye.